up, everybody? Welcome to the Long Play Listening Party, the show where we go deep on local music, writing, recording, inspiration, gear, and whatever else sounds good to us. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records, joined by my co-host, Nate Holt. What's going on, Nate?
How's it going, everyone?
And special guest, Cory Kibler from Lincoln, Nebraska. Cory is a musician and a friend of mine for many, many years. What's going on, Cory?
Cory, and I'm so glad to be here. I'm thrilled. Thank you for inviting me. I love the project that we're about to talk about, and I ate some salmon, so I'm fortified.
What? Why did you say your own name?
Cory Kibler.
That's not something I've known you to really do all that often.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm just glad to be here.
That's who he is.
Yeah. It's who I am.
All right, well, gentlemen, I brought you...
Loud and proud, brother.
Loud and proud, Cory Allen. I brought you together today to talk about an album I made with a ton of collaborators. The album's called A Weirdest Beat Tape, and we're going to tell the story of that album today. And I hate that I sound like my logical, methodical side just comes right out, but I don't know another way to do it, so I'm just going to dive in. We're just going to lean into that a little bit.
Yeah.
We do have like a concept a little bit in that we're going to... Well, let me back up. About a year and a half ago, depths of the pandemic, stimulus money rolling in, I purchased a SP404 SX. For those of you on Instagram or YouTube, I'm holding it up to the camera right now. This is the actual unit. Very famous, kind of lo-fi, known for lo-fi hip-hop, very famous sampler. And, of course, I immediately started making music, because that's what I do when I buy new kind of synth equipment specifically. And this project is the first thing that happened with the 404, along with another album that's coming out in a couple months. Done the podcast show for it, but yeah, we won't go into that here. That I don't want to expand our scope too much. So made an album with a 404, just exploring all the 404 things, right? Sampling, effects, the pattern sequencer, resampling, all the famous... If you've used a 404 or touched that world at all, I watched YouTube videos and I went down rabbit holes and I kind of looked at what the greats have done with it and just started playing with those techniques. And what you're about to hear is the album that resulted from that. We're going to listen in the order I made the songs, roughly. Of course, they overlapped somewhat, but as much as possible, we're going to listen to the stuff in the order that I made it. And one piece of this, and we'll start talking about it right away with the second song, but I got very interested in doing remixes. And so, Cory, I did a remix for you on this project. Nate, with your kind introduction, I did a remix for Approach. I'll tell the story of the Sounds Good remix in a second when we listen to that. And then just kind of I discovered a wonderful stick figure a cappella just as I was like trolling through Bandcamp. That dude has so much music on Bandcamp spread out with different labels and it's... I spent a lot of money on that guy's music, and I'm happy to have done it. But one of the EPs I found that was on the producers page, I think, included all the acapellas and all the instrumentals, and one of the songs, Bucket, really jumped out at me. So I just grabbed that acapella and did the tune, and then showed it to Stick, like, "Hey, I hope you like this. If it's okay, could I put it out?" Yeah.
The Phoenix.
Hey, here we go.
Sorry, I accidentally hit enter.
I was ready.
I was about to ask what 5 out of 6 is about. And this
Yeah, so this is a cover of a Dessa song. It's not even a cover. It's I took this thing out of the box on the day it came, and I turned the power on, and I started hitting buttons, and I immediately realized, like, oh, I need some material to play with.
Yeah.
And so the SX here, it has a pretty crappy little built-in microphone, which is super useful. And so I beatboxed this kick and snare kind of cross stick sound into that mic, and use the effects to pitch them down and probably filter, distortion, different effects to make the drum sounds. And then I went up to Carrie Ann and I was like, hey, will you sing something? What song's in your head right now? And this was the song, this Dessa song. It's 5 out of 6. Incredible song, incredible artist. And so she sang the hook a cappella, no, not to the click, not to anything. And then I had her do those hums just for something to mess with, to make a little pad sort of out of.
And in a day in which we're running here and there and constantly.
And that's it. Oh yeah, this caught me by surprise. There's interstitial noise and radio sound. There's 2 layers to that. One is a layer that Drew recorded with the Soma, I think it's called the Ether. It's this little device that records all the radio frequencies like at once. And so it's crazy, just experimental noise and whatever. And then I made a radio. Well, I bought a radio with a voltage controlled tuner and modded it so that I could put like synth control voltage in to control the tuning knob. So I sequenced the radio a bunch and like chop that up, and that's the kind of intermediate noise.
It's dope. I love that sort of thing. And wait, so in the track that we just heard, 5 out of 6, that a sample of your voice?
Yep.
That didn't sound like a beatbox at all. Like it sounded like a 404 sound. I'm pretty impressed and a little bit alarmed by that. It's awesome.
And it's all due to the 404's effects, because like one of the things about the 404 is applying the effects, and you can only apply one at a time. And if you want to apply a second one, you have to resample the first and then apply the second and like resample that. So it forces you to commit, almost like 4-track tape or something, where you just have to say.
It's like you have to. Yep.
Yeah. So both those sounds are heavily processed. My beatboxing is not impressive at all.
That's pretty. Whether it was you or the 404, it just sounds super dope. That was really good. It is kind of weird, like, right, with a DAWs or something like that, you never really have to commit. Like, you think about like bouncing down tracks on a 4-track or an 8-track, high school or college or something. You had to decide this is how it's going to be, or else I have to do the whole thing over again.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be an interesting thing to go back to. Like,
it's fun. It's a little nerve-wracking at times, but it's fun.
Yeah, I bet.
So this is a mashup of Sounds Good's song Money and Mass One, which is a night mode song. Drew made it himself. It's off the first night mode album. So a solo Drew night mode. And let's listen to it a little bit.
We try to fight like that, y'all. This y'all. Hands up in the air with your fist ball. Yes, y'all. Haters want the front, get the back, y'all. Back, y'all. Hit them with the hacksaw. If they really wanna try to act hard, you ain't thugged out, cause you got a man who ran a drug route. Give a damn milking what you can from your man's clout. No plan, still standing with your hands out.
So neither of these first two were really intended for release. This Money Mass One, this is the second piece I made on the 404. I started by chopping up night mode song, adding the drums. I made these drum samples. I added that Rhodes.
Yeah, the Rhodes sounds dope.
And it turned into this huge, like 9-minute thing. Then there's a big synth part that comes in later. And I shared it with Nate and Royce, like before or after one of the podcasts. And as we were listening to it together, I kind of had this passive thought, like, oh, like, I almost think some vocals could fit in here. And my perception from the two of you, Nate, was that you guys are like,
Yeah.
yeah, you couldn't.
Not that it was, you know, it was more like, I want to see how that goes, right?
Yeah, but you couldn't quite see it. It wasn't an immediate like, oh yeah.
No, I couldn't. No.
So I wanted to show you what I had in mind. And I just went looking for any kind of like rap vocals that I could pop in there. And in my iTunes library was this Money acapella from a Sounds Good EP that probably a lot of people don't have. And so I grabbed it and I started cutting it in, and I loved it way more than I expected to. Like, I just wanted to, when I sat down, I just wanted to show the concept. But as I went through the song and like was finding spots for things, I started to get really into it, and it became something that got, like, this song was stuck on my head as I was making it for like a couple weeks. And so it became like a really important kind of piece of the journey. But at a technical level, it's very limited. Like the mix is way off, both because I didn't know what I was doing so much with the 404, and because I wasn't mixing around vocals. Like I wasn't leaving a space for vocals on purpose.
Sure. Yeah.
And I had to slow Joe Good down a ton, you know, to make it match the tempo, because this tempo is just glacial.
Right.
So a bunch of things combined to make it. It's not my best mix, certainly, but the song does get stuck in my head, and I think once somebody has heard the whole thing, all the way to the end with this big long outro, I think then it makes sense. But it is a weird one at first.
I like the weird one. It's weird. I mean, as you were talking about it, probably you were saying that you were using the vocals as an example, almost like a Lorem Ipsum, like here's where it could go or something. The vocals do feel really disparate from the beat itself, but I think it works super well, like in a way that maybe wouldn't really appreciate until you actually heard it. Like I don't think anybody would have thought to put those together. So sure, we'll hear it since we're listening to the songs in the order in which they were done. I'm sure that on your end you experienced an evolution in how you were doing the 404. Do you hear an evolution, like sonically, like when you listen back, are you like, oh, I can tell this is happening, or I got better at this, or I did this less, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from, you know, the world I've come from in terms of rock and, you know, ambient electronic music and all kinds of different things, I've learned a ton about leaving space for vocals. I've learned a ton about, so like in a rock band, in a verse part of a Shacker song or whatever, right? You know, the bass and the guitar will have their own parts to play throughout the verse, but like they will play consistently. And this is obvious in retrospect, but in hip hop, a lot of times there's a call and response between different instruments. So your bass will play a couple notes, and then your sample or a horn or something else will play a couple notes, or a chord or something. You won't have like the bass and an organ and a sample all going throughout the whole loop. which is what you hear. You know, like I'm playing the Rhodes and the night mode song is going on like here, and there's a synth lead, and there's no space in any of those parts.
Right. Just press play on them all at the same time. No, that's good. And again, I think it works really well. Like, it's wild to go from the section that we just heard. That's just very minimal little, almost like somebody playing a rhythm on their knee.
Right.
Know?
Yeah. Right.
That'll be going on, and then like it just comes kind of ripping in, and it's pretty badass. Like, I think it sounds super, super cool.
Nate, that synth lead is MS-20 into delay into some kind of a distortion, and I think it's the MS-20's own distortion. I think I took the line out from the MS-20, hit delay, and then ran back through the MS-20 signal processor for the distortion.
Rhodes that you have in your house, did you say there was something like goofy with it that you had to fix or something like that?
I was about to ask if that's Rhodes that you use.
It is. That Rhodes is back with its owner, Scott Morris, now.
Ah.
But yeah, the action was really tough. You had to really pound it to get sound out of it. And the tuning was off when I got it from him.
That's what I remember.
I tuned it pretty well, so it was in tune by this point. But the action was still pretty tough.
Like a piano?
No, it's got tines on it, and they've got little springs. And Howie, I know I'm not explaining this thoroughly, but essentially what it is, it's just tines, which are little thin metal, bars. Then they have a spring that goes on them, and depending on where you move the spring up or down on that bar is how it vibrates, the note that it vibrates at, the frequency that it vibrates at. So you can really tune it, like use a tuner and tune each note as they go, but keeping the tines, in good shape, and keeping that whole basically like board with the pickups and everything on it in good enough shape and mechanically I guess the word I'm looking for, mechanically optimal is difficult a lot of times.
Yeah, they take a lot of TLC to really keep in good shape.
Like if you move them around, you gig with them, you definitely need like a roadie or like a tech, because they'll require it for sure.
Do people like do an alternate tuning of Rhodes on purpose? Like, is that something that people do?
I'm sure,
I bet so.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody has, but it'd be a commitment.
I feel like Nils Fromm probably has done it at some point.
I bet if like Steve Malkmus has a Rhodes, he's done it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy a Rhodes and detune it and make $1 million.
So before we move on, I can't thank Jamal Joe Good enough for approving that Money Mass One mashup, because I know how weird it is, and I was thrilled when he okayed it. All right, so this is a song by an artist called Christina Graves. We had her on the podcast, and I was editing the podcast, her podcast where we had her on, at 1.3, 1.4 speed. And I'm just bopping along in podcast mode, and all of a sudden I realized that this song has like an amazing feel at that speed.
Star and stripes, sacrifice, bang against the lowered half staff.
So that became the basis. I
Another parent broke.
Bounced out a version at that speed with no changes, no sonic changes, except I added a tiny bit of kick drum, to reinforce, because at this speed everything is moved up about half an octave. Maybe not quite, maybe 5 or 6 semitones. So I added just a touch of kick drum to put back some low end. And chopped it up, did all the arranging in my DAW and Reaper. And then, of course, put it on the 404, did all the effects and everything. And I had made that space for a rap verse, which Royce very nicely filled. And we're actually talking, I can't announce anything, but we're actually talking about maybe doing a little bit more with this song. So hopefully that will come together. Oh yeah, and I took some samples of her from the very end, some vocal samples that I sprinkled in kind of throughout. But it was fun to rearrange this one and like really change where the verses fit and where the choruses fit, and then the section after this I kind of created.
I think I can hear like a real evolution just between the first 2 songs and this one. And listening back, like this seems a lot more like intentional or something. Not that the other 2 weren't awesome, but they definitely sounded like experimental.
Yeah.
In a way, or something like that. This one is like was very fleshed out. I would love it if you guys did more with this song. That would be wonderful. That's my vote.
And all the credit goes to the Christina and Brandon and the original artists and engineers, because this whole record, it's beautiful. It's beautifully recorded from start to finish. Listeners, go back and listen to our episode with Christina Graves, which is a really cool episode. But this whole album sounds fantastic. The players are incredible, but it's just something about this one. The speed, it had the chipmunk soul kind of thing, but not in a cheesy way. Like it could sustain through the whole song, I felt like.
It's like when Kanye is at his best with that sped up soul, it works really, really well. Yeah. But he's also done it in a way that goofy, but right on that Common record, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just really tastefully done. Even then, it's pretty impressive to be able to listen to a whole song with it sped up and it feels natural and not like at all gimmicky or anything. You know what I mean? It sounds it's just like a song.
Yeah, I like that one.
It was just happenstance, and the reason I got the 404, I didn't know if I'd make releasable music with it.
Sure.
But I got it because I got it for the ear training. I wanted to learn how to listen for samples and chop samples up, and I thought that would do something interesting to my ears and to my production skills in other types of music. And this was an example of that process starting, right? Because I wasn't looking for a sample. I was just editing the podcast. And all of a sudden my ears perked up like, oh, wait, this could be something else.
It's awesome.
So Cory's song is next. Oh, go ahead, Nate.
What was that thing at the end of it?
Some more of that radio noise. I don't miss it specifically, but like every track has some of that at the end.
All right.
I want to let the first few bars, like I want to hear like your first 8 bars of this.
Again, I told my best buddy how the movie ends. I spoiled it good, like I did with Friends. I had to promise my friends I wouldn't do it again. Facts are facts, Ross was dead the whole time. Finale episode nearly blew my mind. I'm no film expert, but I think it's accurate.
Bunch of dumb dorks don't know the half of it.
No PhD, just a sheet.
So shout out to Mike Papagini, the beat maker on this track.
What other items could I want in life besides a house with a roof and a real
And this is like a halfway track, because Cory, we had talked about, and I've now done a full remix of this track with a new instrumental, which will come out on a future project. But this was the halfway point of, I had taken your vocal and the original instrumental, sliced them up in Reaper again, and rearranged them like I had done with Today. And it had its own thing that I liked and wanted to play more with the effects on the 404, and so I just made it its own thing. So there's gonna end up being 3 versions of this song.
That's awesome. Extra version.
I should have done that with the titles.
That's it. We could totally still do that. We can
You
do
still
that.
do it with the full remix, yeah.
This song, I'm so thrilled with it. Okay, the original, like this. I just want to listen to that part.
That's my favorite part of the whole thing, is like emphasizing the Pop-Tarts line.
Like this, so the song eventually, obviously, it's like fun. Where I was totally having fun with it and just doing whatever. And I liked it a lot, and I thought it was funny, everything. But I remember when you sent me the remix, I was in my car on the way to work, like laughing out loud, and
Perfect.
it was like she did not get why my 4-year-old daughter did not get why I was laughing that hard. She's like, it stops in weird places. I don't get it. And I was like, it's perfect. It's
Yeah, I really chopped the ending to bits.
love it.
Which was I guess I wasn't really thinking that hard about it. It was just having fun. But I guess I thought it was kind of a fun juxtaposition with the like very old school, hip hop.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, if you're gonna do that in 2022, there has to be a curveball in there somewhere. You can't just do that.
I don't know. Absolutely. I definitely like for the chorus and a lot of this song. Like I was listening to a ton of Cool J. Is it stereo or radio? What is it called? I think it's radio. Anyway, yeah. I was listening to a shitload of that at my house because I found it on vinyl and I just couldn't stop listening to it. He had those like bap bap hip hip bap, like those kinds of choruses that are like boom bap, like break dance kind of stuff. And so that's what I was influenced by there.
Great influence.
Yeah, I like that. How you added that in between songs. It's kind of cool.
I'm a sucker for it. I love it because it feels like then it's a narrative.
Yeah. Well, you're changing the channel, and you get to another track.
Thanks. And it needed some glue because the source material is so all over the map, and I put it right in the title, right? Like, it is a weirdest beat tape.
Yeah.
I was gonna, at first the working title was The Weirdest Beat Tape, but then I thought, well, someone's probably made one at least this weird, if not weirder.
Yeah. All right. You don't want to get sued for false advertising.
Yeah, I don't want to be too presumptuous.
Or you could just be super confident and like, no, it is the weirdest beat tape.
Well,
yeah.
Come at me, bro.
Get aggressively confident about it.
Tell
the world.
Exactly.
The people can decide. I thought the radio bits also. Well, I guess with tying together stuff. The other, and we'll get to the song, but Stick is the other like necessary piece of glue, I think, to all this, because Stick, Cory, is the bridge between what you're doing and what kind of all the rest of this is like. And his song, it's not a joke song by any means, but like some of the stuff he says in there is so funny and so like hyper literate. My unlaced J's stay plugged into the cement, that's so evocative. That's like novelistic.
So it's really good.
And he's like the bridge to me between like your world and Approach, you know, or Sounds Good and some of the rest of the stuff. Anyway, we're getting into the part. So this is the Science of Everything. These are the next 3 songs. It's all me, and it's all done directly on the 404. So after Today and Extra Virgin, I challenged myself like, okay, let's make some tracks only on the device and see what happens with that. So this is the one I used the pattern sequencer method. So there's a BPM and a click, and I'm recording samples and setting up patterns and like doing the deep dive on that method. So I don't know, the vocals, I mean, it's all me. The vocals are me. The drums are probably samples, maybe from I downloaded some samples. There's definitely Monotribe in there.
Right on.
I'm trying to think what the main kind of pad sound is from. I don't remember anymore, I don't think. It may actually... Maybe the pad was one of the stock samples that came on the 404 from the factory?
That would make sense.
They give you it's like a factory setting kind of, like where they have like a few snares, a few kicks, a few cymbals or something kind of.
Yeah, and even some key samples and
nice.
I don't remember what all was on it, but yeah. And then the next one, let me show you, was not only a challenge of using the resample method to make a song, but also I was playing with a Dilla technique. And there's a very good explainer on YouTube, I'll link to it, that I watched by a guy who goes by Very Sick Beats. And in fact, I used 2 of his techniques in this song. One is the Dilla technique of chopping a sample that's in 6/8 time into 4/4 time.
Ooh, that's cool.
That works really well because you cut out a third of each. You know, you cut out between beats 3 and 4 and between beats 5 and 6, kind of. So you chop on the downbeat and then on the snare on 4, and then make a 4/4 beat out of that. This song uses the original sample, which is a Howie and Scott song, in both time signatures, so it flips back and forth. The other Very Sick Beats technique in the song is a fake scratch.
Yeah.
And the starting sample of that is tearing a piece of paper.
That's right. You told me that, and it's crazy because, again, it's just like your drum beat at the beginning, the beatboxing. I wouldn't have ever guessed that it was paper. Did you put a lot of effects on the paper
Definitely
sound?
least filter and the vinyl simulator.
Okay. We're familiar with almost any other song on this the first time I heard it, you know? But it was really cool to hear. I've heard this song, I can't even count how many times, you know? Like, it's just
playing
I've heard a lot in my life. And it's awesome, and it's a joy to hear it in this context.
Yeah, it was really fun to do. Nate, the sax is Scott Morris.
Okay.
Let me show you, kid.
It's so weird. So the vocal sample is me, but I don't recognize it as myself when I hear it.
Me neither, yeah. It sounds like an old, what do you want to call it? Like an old radio announcer, like Art L or something like that. I don't know how to.
Yeah, I was going for like British film strip sort of.
Yeah.
Like what was that fake science show? Look Around You. Look around you. Just look around you.
The fake science show?
Oh yeah, if you have
Trying to figure out.
Mystery Science Theater 3000?
no, it's literally called Look Around You.
Oh,
Look it up on YouTube. It's fake British science, like instructional classroom.
sounds amazing.
It's so great.
Right, that sounds really funny.
Let me show you, kid.
Yeah, this came out really great. I really like this one. This is my favorite of the like solo, just me ones.
Let me show you, kid.
And in terms of the story, it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cory.
Well, that's it. I was gonna say something about the story. I was just gonna say that, like, the narrative again. Like, I'm such a sucker for it. I love an album that tells a story, whether through the songs or whether through like that you said, the interstitial kind of stuff. You introduced me to John Hopkins. I love the record that you got me into, but he's also got that Campfire Stories record that I discovered.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fucking awesome. It's like you're at a campfire listening to different people play music, and it's like a cohesive experience. So that was it.
Yeah, that actually ties in, because what I was going to say is, like, this song is kind of important in the story or the process, because I felt like I was able to make like a full-length song
Sure.
only through chopping samples, right? Because there's only that one vocal sample. So there's not like a vocal melody really. And this kind of goes into where the album I did with Royce that'll be out later kind of goes very heavy with this, and like taking a small amount of vocals and processing them in different ways, playing them different rhythmically.
Yeah, which is really cool.
And sustaining like a whole equivalent of a pop song with a very small amount of vocal material. And the arrangement, like, there's always, even with the limited samples in Let Me Show You, there's like always something changing. Every phrase, if it's a 4-bar verse, like 4 things are gonna happen. And just figuring out how to do that was kind of the development piece. This is Lights in the Forest. This is a failed experiment, essentially, but it turned out okay. My ceiling fan makes cool, semi-random rhythmic clicks and things.
Yeah.
And so this is a long sample of that. I held the mic up and my arm got real tired, and what I was gonna try to do was emphasize the clicking and the rhythmic piece, and find like pieces of that I could turn into an identifiable beat.
Yeah.
And there's too much background noise to clean up and get it to anything that was like rhythmically usable. So I just leaned in and played with some effects and like made an ambient piece out of it.
I have several items in my house that do something like that.
Yeah.
Laura gives me a hard time because I will hum along to the microwave. But I didn't know I did it. It has this like short wave kind of thing to it.
Oh, cool.
I was like kind of harmonizing to it or singing along with it or whatever, and she was like, "It's weird that you hum along with the microwave," and I was like, "I don't do that. It's not something I do." And she's like, next time you microwave something, just pay attention." She was right.
Now I want a sample of you doing that like has both. I want both sounds.
Right. Your approach or your evolution with writing songs with a 404, it kind of mirrors like my experience with like songwriting, but more so it's like it made me think of cooking, and by that I mean I was first learning to cook food. I was putting way too much stuff in there and trying to get too fancy, and it was just a bunch of stuff in there. And the more I cook and the older I get, the more I am super into a few ingredients done in an interesting way, or leaving a lot of space or whatever. So when you're using these 404 samples and vocals, like in the song that we just heard, like, it would be really easy to make it really cluttered and almost like kind of nauseating in a way, like as far as like just being overwhelming with stuff. But it had a ton of space. It was a song, I'd heard before, but just the 6/8 turned into 4/4, the sax, whatever. It's just that's something that it pays for people to learn really quickly with a 404 or any sampler. Like, don't go nuts. Less is always more. It's fun. It's fun to make sounds and do effects and stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest temptation you have to because it's a blast to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And a couple of specific things about the 404 kind of reward minimalism in that way. Number one, the thing which you don't have to do, but it sounds awesome and it's super fun to do, of like doing an effects take, and like, so you have a finished song or whatever, and you play it through and you're like slamming different effects on there and turning the knobs, and that's so fun.
I bet.
It sounds cool. You feel like $1 million when you're doing it. It is easy to overdo that too, but like definitely when you add, that's a whole different type of production to the listener's ear.
Yeah.
Most music, that's just not really a thing that happens in a lot of music.
Right.
And then the compressor on this
slamming
thing,
effects,
which is famous and just hyper aggressive. And brings out, it brings up the noise floor, it brings up every reverb tail and like delay. And so even at like minimal settings, when you use the compressor, which is great, but like it's bringing out texture and little tiny things in every sound in your mix, which is a whole different kind of thing, but like again rewards sort of minimalism, I think.
Right.
Which I learned slowly. This remix, Nate, can we start this over? Is that too much trouble?
I'm okay with that too. This song rips.
Awesome, because I kind of want to hear like how we get into it. I kind of want to let that play, because this is not minimal, and honestly, it could have been a little more minimal.
Yeah, I think it's so good.
All right, let's listen to this until we get some synth and bass, because I want to explain about the bass. Stick it, bucket.
I'm in the bucket with the bucket low. Nappy head, busted clothes, I ain't shaved in a couple, bro. But the ladies love it though. And the cutty two-tone, like the way you juxtapose. But the break suspect, always playing the tuck and roll. Stuck below the surface, you gotta know it's killing me. I lied a couple bars ago, you know these bras ain't feeling me. I think I'm lame and corny, so they don't wanna deal with me. I never had the extra cash and swag in my auxiliary. And chivalry is dead the moment that they see the ride. Crack windshield, so they know it not to be inside. Open up the passenger door for me to get in, cause it's the only one that work, but I be dipping. Cost more to fix it than it's actually worth. Sometimes I wanna wreck it, leave it smashed on the curb. Never got the insurance bus.
This is the song I emailed you about when I listened to this. I was like, this is hilarious. It's so good.
It's so good, and it's like all stick. I love that guy.
So I paused it.
Oh, sure.
But you were gonna talk about the bass?
Oh yeah, you can let it play from here.
Okay.
But So this came together in Reaper for the most part, and then went on to the 404 for effects. There was a little bit of sampling. I put a little vocal piece on the 404, play that into Reaper, and so. But this mostly came together in Reaper. Started with the synth part, the huge synth pad. That's AX60. And that was like the main idea, was to, like, I wanted this, I just heard this chord progression. I wanted to take it in a very different direction. I wanted to give Stick something you would not have heard from anybody else before. And so a tiny piece of minimalism in this is that there's no, the synth pad is the bass. Like, there's no low end apart from the AX60.
Oh.
And then, but then there's all those bass, like the fast, like bass riffs.
Yeah.
That are almost like guitar riffs.
Yeah.
So that's bass.
Kind of reminds me of Dose of Mine a little bit.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a huge compliment. Thank you. And yeah, now that you mention it, I hear it.
Yeah.
And we had that. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but like I had definitely heard Eric's music by this point, so that was in the stew for sure.
He sent his new album out privately to a few people. Man, it's
sweet.
Killer.
Oh, I'm excited for that. But yeah, I mean, I guess another cool, so like I had done with Today and Extra Virgin, I took the original and cut it up and made, the first thing I did was like cut it up and make my arrangement in Reaper as far as putting, moving pieces around. And one thing I really liked is total accident, but the way I kept the instrumental and vocal parts, matched to each other. And like what happened with Extroversion, I liked how the intensity and the dynamics and even things as detailed as like the hi-hat, forward in the mix or not. Right. I liked how all that worked out completely by accident in my kind of rough cut. So I mimicked that in how I like put the drums together and all the other parts. I mimicked that arrangement, that sort of accidental arrangement of how the original instrumental got cut up to make the vocal arrangement that I wanted. And I talked over it, but I tried to give a little nod to it. There's a drum fill from the original instrumental that shows up a couple times in the remix.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that one just makes me happy to listen to, and it's because of Stick.
Yeah. Like it.
It's cool how that, I mean, any kind of musical thing becomes, I don't know. Yeah, I like it too. So we'll finish up with the last one. They Come at Night, Approach. Last one I did, maybe the first one I wanted to do. I've wanted to remix this song since Merely Minutes in a Day 2 came out, and he was on the podcast, and I heard this song. And I always wanted to do this remix with this drum pattern. Like, what I heard was this drum pattern to his vocals.
Like, hear a song like that and you're like, I know how it should go. Almost, not really, but you're like, this is how it...
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So did you play guitar on this?
Yeah, so I did the drums, and I thought I was going to do something really minimal. And I was fooling around with synth bass and found the two-note change that happens halfway through the verses, like the chord change for the verse. And it didn't sound cool on synth bass, so I got out the real bass and played it, and just started fooling around and like came up with all the bass line stuff. And it grew from there. Then I was like, oh well, I should put guitar chords over the chorus to match the bass. And then it became this echo kind of thing. And then the whole double with the like crazy flanger and crazy distortion on the other side. So it turned into this wild like alt rock thing by accident in one afternoon. Like it just poured out all of a sudden. Unfortunately, we had nothing to do that day, and that could just happen.
Right.
But yeah, bass and two guitars, that was just done in an afternoon.
Yeah, that guitar stuff is killer, man.
Super good.
Yeah.
The bass guitar tone, I mean, is it your same thing, that trick that you have where you put some stuff on that bass tone is so good. It's so like deep and nasty.
My classic DI bass tone. James Jamerson with a little extra juice.
That's awesome.
This is just a general thing that I love, but you hear it here. I love not having a kick or bass on the downbeat, which is a total like African thing. Like in Ghana, they never give you the downbeat, right? Like it's all just other places. But that just like instantly makes something feel kind of funky, I think.
It's cool. We'll give you the downbeat. Get off on being withholding. No, it's totally, it's awesome. I love it. It's like there are certain things about the beat that I love and wouldn't have been able to put into words at all. Like it had like a swing or a groove to it or something, and that's totally what it is.
And I'm sure there's micro timing stuff in there. So that's the drum brute that I use a ton, and I'm well known as a huge fan of the micro timing in that sequencer. So I'm sure I don't remember exactly what, but I'm sure things are like shifted around a tiny amount to whatever just felt right.
I always do that. I mean, I do that in Logic and everything. I mean, little minute movement sometimes just
everything
like make the biggest difference. And a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't know, I don't even hear it, but like
it's there. You're hearing it. You just don't know.
Feel it more. You feel it more than you would maybe hear it. It just
exactly.
Feels
exactly. You feel it.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Getting approaches like feedback and okay for this was so great. I mean, just made my day, made my week. He sent me a nice little video message, which is his jam, kind of. And Nate, I'm sure you've got a million of those.
Uh-huh.
But having looked up to the guy since I moved to Kansas City in 2005 and started like buying local music and stuff.
Yeah, right.
To have him show up on the phone, excited about something I'd done, was really, really incredible.
Yeah, that's
super
pretty
cool,
man. I mean, well, I thought it was a really different and unique and really cool treatment. Yeah, I mean, I love that guitar tone. I don't know. I it'll come to me at some point, like where I want to describe it, but there's something about it. It's cool.
I don't know if this will make you feel like it's less cool. I hope not, but it's heavily influenced by pop era U2.
I mean that I can hear that. It would make sense.
There's
and
a
there's
little
nothing, I mean,
there's a little discotheque in there.
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's the way that it's used, and it. I mean, really, it is. It is.
Absolutely, it is.
And because it sounds like it. That's what you should be using. It doesn't sound like you're pulling to some trope, or you're like, hey guys, this is U2.
Right.
Here's my U2 guitar. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, there's no. I wouldn't have thought. I mean, maybe someone who's just like super knows music a lot would be like, yeah, I recognize that, but I wasn't thinking anything about. I just thought it was like, I was like, man, that's a really dope guitar tone and guitar and the chords. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and it's not an invitation by any means, but it's just it's taking those ideas which aren't the most groundbreaking ideas in the world, time delay and stuff, because Edge's genius isn't in having like the he's not a shredder or anything, but I think he's a musical genius because of how the part fits with the song and how the part sometimes makes the song. And yeah, you can apply that to anything. You can apply that to any genre or whatever, because that's like a generalized musical lesson and insight,
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be tied to crawling out of a lemon.
Right. There's two, right? I think there was two guitar bits. Well, the one is the soaring, flangy airplane taking off kind of guitar. I think there was that, and there was like the faster, high disc. Right, you saying like disco pop.
The picking.
That reminds me of like a more contemporary. Like I thought of Haim, how
sweet.
they do those fast high guitar notes a lot. But once you said U2, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense.
There it is.
That was a very intuitive. Yep.
And it's not the whole part. Like the guitar melody on the outro. If that's influenced by anything, it's really influenced by Five Star Crush, the band I was in 15 years ago. That's that would be a very Joel kind of part in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys each the same question, maybe to wrap up. I don't want to take too much time, but what can you tell me anything you've both known kind of this was happening? You've heard me talk about the 404. What's in terms of a process? What is it like from the outside to kind of go from, hey, I bought this box to here's a record?
I'm you're a person who when you're interested in something like a new instrument or a new pedal or a new whatever, like in this case a 404, you're someone who will just dive in, and it's not a chore for you. It doesn't feel like work. You're just I'm excited to play with this. I'm going to see what I can do. And I can tell listening to this that it sounds like you had a whole ton of fun doing this. It sounds like fun all the way throughout. But even though you're like that, where you'll just pick something up because you get really excited about it, I'm a little surprised and impressed by how naturally it seems like you took to it. This record sounds like such a natural fit or something like that to me. And I know that it was a learning process for you, and I'm sure there's a million things you would have done differently from the beginning or whatever, but it sounds really good, and it sounds really you. You know what I mean? It's a very Howie record in a way that I have never heard before.
That's about the biggest compliment you could give me in a way. I mean, so thank you. Because I didn't know how people would take it. Not that it matters, but I'm happy to hear my personalities in it somewhere.
Yeah. And like I was saying, you can hear an evolution there of like you learning things and trying new things out, but at no point does it feel like a clumsy or awkward or like a bad fit, if I'm making sense. Like it sounds like sounds really good and it sounds really natural. Like this is like it's like a 404 could have been something that you've been messing with for years or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it was your first instrument, like when you were a toddler. Your parents got you a tiny 404 for your crib or something.
It almost could have. I think it came out in like 2002 or something. It's a pretty old instrument in a way.
The 404 is newer than the 808?
Yeah.
Oh, they did numbers it backwards.
Oh, Roland's numbering. I'll send you a video. Alex Ball has a crazy video about Roland's naming and numbering system, which is basically nonsense. There's no, it's total chaos. But yeah, the 808, that's like early 80s.
Right, that's what I was thinking. So I was surprised that the 404 was from early 2000s. I was like, but 404 becomes before 8. That's what I know.
The only thing they have in common is Roland likes those like XOX type numbers. That's the only thing.
I mean, it does sound cool. If you put out the 808, everybody loves the 808. Everybody recognizes it. It sounds cool. They're like, let's just do that again. But shit. What are some other numbers? Ran out of 8s.
Yeah, man, I would echo some of that sentiment as far as it sounding natural. Doesn't sound like it's contrived. Doesn't sound like you went out on some crazy tree limb and are forcing people to listen to a bunch of 404 songs. The songs sound very the stupidest. They sound very song-like. They're and I think some of the remixes you did were super cool. Some of the stuff you did with vocals. Yeah, it's you wouldn't guess that it was something that you were, hey, this is I'm doing this to familiarize myself with this piece of gear. It doesn't sound like that at all. I really like it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's cool to hear about the songs. And I want to be clear, like, I love the 404 artists that just do like 404 things, you know, whether it's
right. And I guess that, you know, I don't want that to be taken as some sort of like,
no, it didn't come off that way.
Everything else I hear in the 404 sounds like, no. I guess it's what you would expect, I guess, to hear, you know, from a 404, which is cool as shit, you know, when you've got the right people working it, isn't what this, I don't think, you know, most of this isn't what I would expect to hear from that.
Yeah, and in
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it never, what you said didn't come off like bad at all. And in a way, it's the skill of those artists like DiBiase and Flobama and people like that I don't have the patience to get to that level of skill with it. I was never going to just put in the hours to make music at the level they make that type of music at. So I was always going to like find a different way into it because like that lane, they're so far ahead of me in that lane that like I'm never catching up. And so I take inspiration from that, but I was never gonna. Cory, it's like with like Derek Jennings and playing guitar. Derek played in a band called The Return that I'll link to, but like I remember being with you and seeing The Return at Knickerbockers and coming out of that show just like, nope. Not ever gonna try and play in that lane, right? Because Derek's so far down that lane. You just have to find a different one.
That's a band. Yes, that's a band where like I'm so inspired. I love the music so much, and when I see them live or when I listen to them, I have like I'm so inspired, and I feel such a powerful emotional response to it. And at the same time, as a musician, I feel so deflated in some ways because I'm like, fuck, Sky songs are so good, and that's to say nothing of his guitar playing and the other musicians in the band, like the bassist and the drummer. It's insane. It would take me so long to write half of, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much going on. Right. So, like, I get that sense of deflation. So you think, like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to attempt to, like, if I'm going to start playing basketball, I'm not going to try to, like, dunk or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I do. I'm going to invent a cool layup or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I feel about The Return, is how I feel about the people who are just incredible on the 404.
It's got to take such, like, dedication, like a real love for doing it. I mean, just having fun with it, but also, like, real vision and real commitment. Like, sometimes probably to the
I mean, like anything else,
it's stuff. Yeah,
it's your the time that you put into it. I mean, some people are more natural than others, and they take to it and they understand it, and it comes quicker. But it does. I mean, you have to put time into it, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people just don't have that much time to put into it. Otherwise, you'd probably see a whole lot of other great artists, great people that are making great art because they have the time to actually learn how to use the tools that I mean, and that's not to say you have to have certain things to make stuff. It's just there is something about having things that you really enjoy using and you really want to spend time getting to know and know how to use and use well. There's a lot to that, and I think a lot of times, I mean, of course, if you know something really, really well, you're going to stuff that you make with it's going to sound like you do know it that well.
For sure. And honestly, I think that's kind of a perfect place maybe to leave it. It's just, this is my little story with this instrument, but yes, it's the same. It's not the same, but it comes from the same place. It has the same, hopefully, fun and energy of whoever you are, whatever tools you have at hand. Play with them, get to know them, make them do things they weren't supposed to do, use them in a genre they're not really associated with, and just play around. Literally play around and see what you can make. I got this. I was interested in this device, but I got it with no expectations. It could be an app on your phone. It doesn't have to be a piece of hardware. Yeah, go. This is what I did. When I was playing around, everybody play around with whatever music making or art making stuff you have lying around. It's called A Weirdest Beat Tape. You can find it at mrfuriousrecords.bandcamp.com or on all the major streaming platforms. And if you listen this far, I appreciate you listening and hanging out, and I hope you enjoy A Weirdest Beat Tape. And there's more to come.
Yeah.
Much more to come.
So much more. You'll be frightened. If I told you how much, you'd be scared. That's how much.
You would change your address.
Yeah.
Change your phone number.
Absolutely.
So nice to talk to you. It's so good.
It is good. This has been a long play listening party. Later, everybody.
Bye-bye.